this PM City lesson, we are going to cover Kanban. It's one of the strategies that have been used for over 50 years in terms of helping with the scheduling, especially where there are things coming in and it's not planned. You're kind of taking things as you need it. So let's go through what the Kanban technique can help you in any project management technique that you are using in your organization. So the easiest way to think about Kanban, it is something that is going to allow you to manage the work that comes in based on priority and just focus on one thing at a time, preferably, and then when you are finished with it, you move on to the next. The concept comes from the Japanese models within the auto industry back in the 1950s, and they would have, say for instance, here in a factory, you would have a board. This board has cards on it, and that's where the Kanban name comes from. And these cards then would be pulled off that list, and you would take a card, you would work on it, and then when that card was done, or that work was done, then you put it in the done pile, and you grab the very next card that is available to you. And so this cycle would just continue until, obviously there are no cards, but in a factory, automation or production facility, you're not going to get finished with all your cards. But you could, in a modern project management approach where you're utilizing the Kanban technique. But let's go through the very basics of what the Kanban method is and how you can use it in your project management. So first and foremost, let's go with most simple, most basic layout of the Kanban methodology. Well, as I said, you would have to start with things to do. And so there would be a bunch of cards or list of things all in the to-do, like your backlog in project management. And then you would need to know, well, what is your work in progress? So what are you working on? And so one of those would have to move over to the work in progress. Then, if you're finished with it, well, then it goes into the done pile. So if you think at a very simplistic way, you are doing something or needing something to do, you're working on it, and then it goes into the done pile. Now, there are some concepts or at least some strategies or best practices around how we do this. One being, well, we like to put some kind of priority on the work that needs to be done so that anybody who has the free time or the ability to work on the very next thing, well, they're working on the next thing of most importance. Who sets that priority would, well, depend on the project you're working on and the stakeholders involved. But with some kind of priority, if I'm the next one to work on something, I can then grab the most priority-driven thing so that way I can assume that this is the most meaningful work or at least the most prioritized work, and then this prioritized work can get done before the other things that are less priority. Another strategy, too, is to minimize the work in progress, because in Agile and really in any kind of work, when you're focused on something, you're more likely to be more productive. And if you are trying to juggle or think about or concentrate on many different things at once, then you are going to lose focus and you're actually losing productivity. Consider right now, if you are taking this lesson, but at the same time doing another activity or reading or taking care of something else, well, you are distracted and you are actually not getting all the work that you need to be focused on and being productive and effective and efficient, because it is a misnomer about being able to multitask. That's why in best practices in Kanban, we usually try to limit the work in progress to 3. So if that's the plan, you could be working on up to 3 things at one particular time. Part of that is that, well, if one is blocked for any sort of reason that can't work on it, well, maybe then I have 2 others that I can work on. But if I try to add too many, again, we're going back to that adage of trying to multitask, and it's only going to put more damage, or it will reduce your output and throughput. We are going to then try to limit this to 3 as a best practice. Ideally, if you can do 1, well, that's even better. And just do that one thing and push it to the next. This is the most simple, most basic Kanban board that's possible, because that's really at a core what you need. But obviously, depending on the work that your team is doing and how things need to be organized, and maybe any of the gates that progress or a work progresses through as it goes from the point it comes in to the point that it comes out, you may want to put more columns in a Kanban board. So for example, instead of just a to-do, a work in progress, and a done, well, we can add some more in between. Maybe there is a review that has to be done in your project, and then you work on it. Maybe then after it's done, maybe it has to be tested. Maybe there's another one where it is there's a stakeholder review or demonstration, and then it can be considered done. So as your tasks move from stage to stage, it can go through these various columns. But the nice thing is that visually, if one task is in the to-do and another task is in the work in progress and another one is in, say, the demonstration, visually we can see where all the team's work or your personal work lies. But in a project team arrangement, we usually like to see all the project work on the board so we can see how they are related, where they stand, and how they are moving through the various gates that we have put. And how they move from one gate to another, well, that depends on how you as an organization put it. Whether there are checks, whether there are simply project team member who's working on it has determined that, yeah, it is completed one and now is on to the next column, then that works just the same. When it goes from the start all the way to the finish, we like to think of that as throughput. How long does it take to get all the way through from coming in to going out? And that is another metric that we can use to see how quickly we are moving through these various stages. But at a very core, as you could tell, Kanban's pretty simple and straightforward. It's about moving your tasks through the various stages, and as you see, it's often done in a visual fashion using the cards, because traditionally that's where it came from in terms of the name of Kanban, and you are trying to see it go all the way through to the end. And then when you have reached the end point, well, then you get to start all over again. And that's a quick look at Kanban in PM City from the crowd training.